So it's been a minute, hasn't it? I haven't been away not doing nothing. I've been working in the background. I've been doing some stuff. The issue is I've just been very busy with life these past 2 months in June and July specifically, but here in August, things should start slowing down. So I may be able to hit record on that camera and come talk to y'all a little bit. But here's the good thing. Here's the good thing, right? There's been a multitude of things that have happened that I really wanted to talk about, whether that's like really analyzing the draft, or talking about Summer League, which came right after the draft, talking about free agency, or certain players leaving, certain players coming in, a specific trade that happened, all kinds of things, contracts that were signed, all kinds of things that happened in the offseason with the Knicks. So we'll go through it. Let's consider this our Knicks summer roundup. Instead of doing some small individual stuff, stretching it out, that's fine. I wasn't capable of doing it. I just didn't have the time, didn't have the capability, didn't have the resources to come out and have these conversations with y'all. But here I am, and there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about with y'all. Because it's been a busy summer. It hasn't been a busy summer, but it's been a busy summer. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about our New York Knicks. And let's start off with this, right? The Knicks end up losing Game 7 against the Indiana Pacers in obviously Madison Square Garden, effectively end their 2023-2024 season in disappointing fashion. I say disappointing, but like how disappointed could we have really been with all the injuries that they dealt with, right? The Knicks season ends with Mitchell Robinson, Julius Randle, Bojan Bogdanovic, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Jalen Brunson all officially listed on the injury report. Well, 5 players out, Josh Hart being the 6th injured player, was capable of playing through his injury. But if you go through it, Mitchell Robinson, ankle surgery, thanks Joel Embiid. Julius Randle, shoulder surgery, thanks Miami Heat coacher Jaime Jaquez, thanks for that. Bojan Bogdanovic, thanks Philly, again being dirty, rolling up on ankles. He's out for the season. He gets ankle surgery, he gets wrist surgery, he's done. OG Anunoby, hamstring pull. Just overextending, going for a ball, trying to save it from going out of bounds, trying to get on the fast break. Having his best game of the season, best game as a Knick, possibly best game of his career. He had 28 points, what was that, in the third quarter, early in the third quarter? His career high was 36. This is a high leverage playoff game. If they win this, the Knicks go up 3-1? 2-1. They go up 2-0. It was the second game of the Pacers series. Yes, he missed the majority of that series. If he doesn't miss the majority of the series, they probably end up winning that series with just OG Anunoby by himself. Not to mention they're missing Mitchell Robinson. Not to mention they're missing Julius Randle, Bojan Bogdanovic. The Josh Hart thing, he ends up hurting his abdomen, gets a strained abdomen. He ends up playing hurt. But after the injury, he's clearly not the same level of player, doesn't have the same level of impact, although he does. I give him all the credit in the world. Playing through an abdomen injury, an abdomen strain, which essentially is like a little bit of a tear in the abdomen muscle, that is painful. That is painful to move, to breathe, to walk, to do anything in. And the fact that he was playing high leverage basketball and pretty effective still, just wasn't as effective as he was prior to the injury. I'd tip my cap to Josh Hart. Thanks for that, big dog. We know you gutted it out, but still, injuries can't control him. He was already playing extensive minutes because of the Julius Randle injury. Minutes got bumped up because of the Bogdanovic injury. Minutes got bumped up because of the Robinson injury. Minutes got bumped up because of the Anunoby injury. Okay, so now Josh Hart's playing 48 minutes a night. Anyway, we move on. So the season ends up ending in disappointing fashion, but at least we could take solace in the fact that the team continued the battle and make it as far as they did, despite the basketball gods and some Joel Embiid nonsense, selfish and dirty play from that guy. Doing all they could to keep the Knicks down, they still managed to battle to a Game 7 of the conference semifinals, 1 game away, before reaching the conference finals against the Boston Celtics, what they would have likely, with all the injuries that they had, gotten absolutely smoked in 4 games. No Jalen Brunson. Oh, I didn't even mention the Jalen Brunson injury. Ends up breaking his hand. I believe it's on Tyrese Halliburton, swiping down, trying to get a steal. Doesn't happen. He's out. It was an injury season from hell last year, especially towards the end. Anyway, season ends in disappointing fashion as the Knicks were incapable of overcoming all those obstacles and beating, and ended up losing to Indiana in Game 7 at home in Madison Square Garden. Disappointing end. As much as we can say, hey, they played hard, injuries ended up taking them out more than like anything else. It still sucks to lose in the conference semifinals when we had high aspirations considering the January that we had last year. Anyway, we have optimism going into next year. And that's great because we knew okay, well, the team comes back healthy. We could see what they really look like, number one. Number two, they could really start to gel together. So we have optimism at the end of the season, as disappointing it is. We have optimism going into next year. We're thinking January Knicks is going to run the league next year. We're thinking, okay, we got a full 82 games of these guys. Yes, maybe some injuries happen here and there. Some guys miss some time. But now we got Devo and Brunson playing the way that they're playing. We got Josh Hart kind of rejuvenated a little bit, figuring out his way, playing alongside Anunoby seems to fit like a glove. Not to mention the Anunoby trade, Julius Randle fitting in alongside of those guys. The fit between him and Anunoby versus the fit between Randle and RJ is drastic. And then you get, hopefully, a healthy Mitchell Robinson back. We will get to talking about the other center in a minute. Anyway, we fast forward a couple of weeks to the NBA Finals. And yes, I want to start at the NBA Finals when discussing the Knicks summer, because there was an interesting rule that went into effect this offseason. And that was that teams were now allowed to talk to their own free agents the second the season officially ended, with the final game of the finals taking place. The last game of the finals. And that happened to be game 5, where Boston dispatched the Dallas Mavericks in 5 games and ended up winning the NBA championship, which meant that the New York Knicks were now capable of talking to their own free agents. That included OG Anunoby, and that included Isaiah Hartenstein, two of the biggest free agents on the market in general. Neither one of those guys ended up signing before free agency opened up to other teams. Makes sense. Gauge the market. See what you're worth, see what's out there for both of those guys. Now, here's the issue. Here's the big old issue. One of those guys has a cap on what the Knicks are legally allowed to offer. And that is one Isaiah Hartenstein. We will get to OG Anunoby's free agency in a minute. But Isaiah Hartenstein, and I'm jumping forward a little bit. We'll cut back in a second, and we'll go through the summer chronologically. But we just want to talk about, because the season ended, the Knicks were allowed to talk to Isaiah Hartenstein. Something happened. Something occurred. The Knicks have a cap as to what they could offer Isaiah Hartenstein. That is 4 years, $72.5 million. Cool. Awesome. By all accounts, by all reports that I've read, I've seen, the Knicks almost offered him that immediately. And they were like, hey, look, you're integral to what we do. You are now the starting center. You're probably going to be the starting center going into the next season with Mitchell Robinson backing you up. You're part of one of the best center tandems in the NBA. You're on a championship contending team. If the injuries don't hit, the Knicks are at least making it to the conference finals. And then who knows? They're giving Boston a run for the money. Whether or not they win it, who knows? That's fantasy. That's made up world. It didn't happen. So we don't have to talk about it. We don't have to theorize about it, because it's over with. We're moving on. Anyway. We know Isaiah Hartenstein. He's done a couple of interviews where he's talked about, man, I really love the Knicks. I really love this team. I really love the culture, the chemistry, the vibe. It feels like a family here. The Knicks really wanted me. They went out. They sought after me. They offered me the bag when the Clippers wouldn't offer me the bag. And that's why I ended up in New York in the first place. And so here we are. 2 years later, you are now a free agent. The original contract is up, and the Knicks say, here is all the money we are allowed to offer you. Every single cent. It's right there. You can count it, but we really want you on the team, Isaiah Hartenstein. You are the center of our team. You make everything fit. You're passing, you're rebounding, your defense. You've gotten better here under the stewardship of Tom Thibodeau. The chemistry you have with Mitchell Robinson, in the sense that you guys have clearly learned from each other. You've become a better rebounder and a better rim protector, with Mitchell Robinson there to help guide you, with Tom Thibodeau there to help guide you with your own work ethic and your training. You're so good, Isaiah Hartenstein. We value you so much. We're not even going to hesitate. Here's all the money. And he doesn't take it right away. Smartly. I want to see what my options are out there. I appreciate the option. And like I said, I'm like he has said before, I'm really going to consider it. It's going to take a hell of an offer for somebody else to pry me away from New York, because I really want to be here. He said this multiple times in multiple different interviews. And so the Isaiah Hartenstein standoff begins. The contract's in there on the table. But we're going to have to wait until free agency opens up, see what Isaiah Hartenstein does. And this is jumping forward a little bit to sort of the free agency period. This comes after the draft and after Summer League and all of that stuff. And we'll get to the draft and Summer League and what we think of the new players that the Knicks took and everything like that. But I don't want to make the Isaiah Hartenstein thing just a little footnote in the free agency discussion, because this is essentially the biggest thing that happened to the Knicks in the offseason. And yes, I know we will talk about a certain trade that happened. To me, this is the biggest thing that has happened to this team this offseason, because it puts them in an interesting situation. If they don't make the trade that they made, if they don't trade for Mikal Bridges, they still have a perfectly fine guard rotation. They still have DiVincenzo as the starter. You could still bring in McBride. You can bring back Bogdanovich, or you could trade for another good backup role player off the bench. And that's serviceable. That's good enough. You still got Josh Hart coming in off the bench. You got Anunoby back fully healthy, ready to go to start the year. You're good. You're good. Mikal Bridges just makes you significantly better because now you have even more pieces to work with. The thing with Isaiah Hartenstein is that he leaves in free agency and you get nothing. You get nothing if that happens. And you're kind of left with a giant center-sized hole in your team. So we're going to fast forward a little bit here to the day that Isaiah Hartenstein makes his decision. Talks to a couple of other teams. Offers come in. Takes them very seriously. Knicks offer is still sitting there. It's been sitting there this whole time. They have not touched it. They've called him. They said, hey, just a reminder, that contract's sitting right there for you to sign if you want it. We want you back. We know you want to be back. That is the most money we could offer you. Trust me, we could give you a little wink, wink, and then maybe we could work some things out under the table. Maybe you get a couple of brand deals here and there. Listen, it's New York City, baby. Investments come from all over the place. We can make some things work out. But this is the contract we could offer you. We know the city's expensive to live in. We know other teams are probably offering you more money per year. But is it really worth it? Leaving a team that loves you, a city that loves you, a fan base that adores you, you've become a fan favorite. Leaving the world's most famous arena, a place you could play in 42 nights a year. 41 nights a year, excuse me, my math is off. With much consideration, a couple of days into free agency, meaning that the Knicks are still sitting there waiting for Hartenstein to make a decision, and centers, backup bigs, starting caliber bigs, they're flying off the board. And the Knicks are waiting. The Knicks are waiting. Isaiah Hartenstein, we really want you back. And I know you guys know. But Isaiah Hartenstein ends up signing a 3-year, $87 million deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And look, on the human level, can't blame the guy for taking the money. And it's not like he went to a bad team. He went to a championship contending team on the West Coast. He's now in the Western Conference, which is great. But the fan in me is betrayed. The fan in me does not like Isaiah Hartenstein anymore. The fan in me wants him to have a horrific year with Oklahoma City Thunder. I want him to not be able to fit in with the team on the court. I want him, apparently he talked about, listen, it's not just the money. It's not just the fact that I'm going to an awesome team in Oklahoma City Thunder with their own MVP candidate and SGA and the rising stars and Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams and all of that and all the role players that they have. And it's great. And I fit right in, and they needed a big to rebound and defend. He talked about more of an offensive freedom that he'll have in OKC. What that tells me is that he really just kind of wants to shoot some threes. He wants the ability to work in that jumper, that lefty jumper that when he first came to the Knicks, he showed, hey, I've been working on this jumper. Remember his first preseason game, he knocked down 2 threes. He was 2 for 2 from 3, hit one as the trailer, came down as the big, bang. And I remember all of us Knicks fans were like, hold on, we might have our stretch center here. And Isaiah Hartenstein, hold on, this dude came in, he's knocking down threes like that in preseason? Okay. And then you know what happened? You really couldn't hit him at that clip consistently. And Tom Thibodeau said, hey, man, that's not working out when we're trying to win basketball games. So get your butt down in the paint and do some big man work. And guess what? You got paid for doing that big man work. So I hope you go to Oklahoma City and it don't work out for you. Because you could have had it all here. You could have made all that money back here. Ask Jalen Brunson. And the fact that Jalen Brunson took a pay cut makes you look even worse. And this is just the fan talking about it. Like I said, as a person, as an adult who's not a fan, right? If I separate the fandom from reality, yeah, you take that contract, you go move to Oklahoma City. That's $30 million in 1 year when you could have $30 million over 2 years. Like, no, give me the 1 year $30 million. That's guaranteed. Thank you. Put it in my pocket. Awesome. I will figure it out in 3 years whether I'm staying or I'm going, but I will take the money that you're offering me right now, considering that the career opportunities are essentially the same. He's still going to have a chance to win a championship down there in Oklahoma City. That team is that dang good. But the fan in me hopes that you get booed the second you walk into New York. The second you step foot in New York, I hope you get booed. I hope you can't show your face out in the city because you will just be constantly booed. I hope you walk around and everybody's just walking around booing you. I hope when you come to the arena to play your first and only game in Madison Square Garden next year, that the fans don't do that. I hate when fans do this, where they cheer them during the opening introductions and then they boo them the rest of the game. So they show them, listen, we appreciate what you did, but now you're the enemy, boo. No, you're the enemy. That's it. I don't even appreciate what you did anymore. You're gone. You betrayed us. Betrayal doesn't deserve respect. And you betrayed us. Now, that's just the fan in me talking. Realistically, yeah, it sucks. He moved on. We got to do the same. And now we're looking for a backup big. And we'll get to that when we talk about the free agency that the Knicks had. Let's move back chronologically to what should have been the NBA draft, but the day before the draft, something happened. Something NBA world shattering happened. The New York Knicks and the New Jersey Nets officially agreed on a trade. The first trade they've agreed upon in over 40 years. I believe the last time they made a trade was 1983. Over 40 years it's been since the Knicks and the Nets agreed on a trade. And this wasn't just a normal trade. This was a blockbuster of a trade. The New Jersey Nets agreed to trade Mikal Bridges and a couple of other ancillary pieces, like Keita Bates-Diop, over to the New York Knicks for what amounted to 5 first-round picks. Now, I gave my thoughts to you guys a little bit on this when we did the live draft coverage. But I'll just say it here. It's worth every pick. It's worth it. I know it sucks to give up the picks, but if you have the opportunity to add a guy of Mikal Bridges' level without really giving up any of your core rotation pieces, you gotta do it. You have a bunch of picks. The Knicks still have some picks in reserve, and they're not great picks. They're lottery protected picks from a couple of crappy teams, but it's still worth taking the gamble of saying we'll be good in 4, 5, 6 years from now when those picks will essentially have gone up. We'll still be good because our players are young enough. We draft well enough. We'll get to the draft. We draft well enough. And we're smart enough in our free agency that we'll figure it out. Even if our players don't age well, which obviously they should age well, these Villanova guys, and they're young enough to age into an era where they'll still be competitive, they'll still be good, those picks still won't be great by then. And even if it does, the only one that's really going to be affected is that 2031 pick, which is, I know it sucks to trade a future, but that is essentially like a grade schooler right now. I can't be thinking about that when I have the opportunity to add in Mikal Bridges, one of the most sought-after 3-and-D players, one of the most sought-after players in the NBA, in the trade market the last couple of years. I would be crazy to not agree to that trade. I get it's an overpay. I get it's a lot of picks. But picks are theoretical. Mikal Bridges is right now. It's realistic. I know exactly what I'm getting out of that guy. So yes, you make that trade 10 times out of 10. It also brings in the extra motivation, the extra oomph of bringing the Villanova boys back together, right? You got Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Dante DiVincenzo, and Josh Hart, the 4 main guys from that Villanova team who ended up becoming good NBA players. And Brunson and Bridges and DiVincenzo, in Brunson's case, an incredible, amazing MVP level NBA player. It brings those 4 guys back together. Now, those 4 guys, they won championships. And this is a big gamble from Leon Rose to give up a lot of draft capital to try and recapture that. But this time in the NBA's, all 4 of those guys are better than they were in college, obviously, as they should be. But despite it being a steep price, if that is what it costs to turn yourself into a championship contending team, best believe you got to go for it. Best believe you have to do it. It may pain you to reach into your pocket and pull out all those picks and hand it to them, your crosstown rivals. But even if it leads to 1 championship, it will all be worth it. The funny thing about that is that happened right the day before the NBA draft. So after all the euphoria of that, we now go into an NBA draft, which brings expectations, excitement, and hope to a Knicks fan base that has dealt with an organization that has skipped the last 2 drafts. They traded their draft picks, haven't really picked up a player. The only player they picked up the last 2 years was a young man by the name of Trevor Keels, who played at Duke, who was in the Knicks Westchester G League team. Didn't really do much, got his rights traded over to Minnesota, and we haven't really seen him since. Wasn't an NBA player. I wish him well wherever he is, but that was it. The Knicks haven't had a fun, interesting young player to watch for quite some time. And so going into this draft, it was very much expected that the Knicks would walk out of it with at least 2 or 3 players, right? Considering that they moved on from their younger talent in RJ and quickly Toppin, although, you know, he was an older rookie, so he wasn't really young. He was still part of that young group that Knicks fans really clamored for, part of the Knicks kids, as they were nicknamed, and Quentin Grimes. The Knicks moved on from all 4 of those guys in trades that ended up making the team better. Smart trades. And so it was widely expected, widely sort of rumored. The Knicks were really looking to go kind of all in and then pick up some good young players in this draft, whether that was trading up for a higher first-round pick or trading down for multiple more picks. The Knicks ended up walking out of this draft with 4 total picks. One of them came in the first round. The Knicks walked into night 1 of the NBA draft. They split into 2 days, I should say. I don't even want to say nights, because the second day was a garbage piece of production. It was awful. Hated it. We'll get to that in a second. Let's stick to night 1. Night 1, the Knicks walked in with 2 draft picks, the 25th and the 26th pick. They ended up trading out of the 26th pick, picked up some future draft capital, but they did take the 25th pick. And it was an interesting pick. It was the 18-year-old, 6'8" wing player from France, Pacom Davier. And let me tell you, I really like this kid's name. I like saying it, Davier. He's great. He's 18. He's really raw. It's a very unexpected pick for the Knicks. We'll talk about the Knicks Summer League and whatnot. But I will say, while he is a project, he is very raw, very interesting pick for the Knicks. It's definitely a swing for the fences kind of pick for them. And we'll see how it plays out. We're going to have to wait. But at that size, at that age, at that promise, it's very interesting for a championship contending team to take a swing like that. But that late in the first round kind of makes sense. And I trust this organization and this team with their draft picks, considering what they've done in Toppin and Quickly, in McBride, and Jericho Sims. They find talent in the draft, right? That was their night 1. Didn't really do much, traded out of the 26th pick. We go into day 2. I almost said night 2, but it was day 2 because the NBA is not a very smart organization. They're not making smart moves right now. Splitting it up in 2 days was an awful decision. I was at first like, hey, let's see how it plays out. It was a truly horrendous, terrible decision. And then number 1, they booked it for 3 o'clock in the afternoon here in the East Coast. And nobody really even knew. They didn't even really have good coverage. They didn't book the arena for the second day. So it was done in like ESPN studios or something, and it was just horrific. It was a terrible production. There was no fanfare. There was no interest. There was no excitement. There was no analysis going on. It was simply just a watch party to see what happened with Bronny James, even though everybody knew he was going to end up on the Lakers, and it was terrible. Terrible. That's my rant on day 2 of the NBA draft. Completely unnecessary, completely killed the momentum of the excitement of the draft, and it was horrific, and the coverage was terrible, and the production of it was horrendous. Anyway, what did the Knicks do? The Knicks ended up doing a whole lot of Knicks things. This organization loves their draft night trades. They love draft night trades, or I should say draft day trades in this day 2 scenario. They traded up, they traded down, they back up, back down, all around. They were everywhere on the draft board. They ended up walking out with Tyler Kolek, Kevin McCullough Jr., and the last pick in the draft ended up going to the Knicks, and that ended up being Ariel Hukporti, a big man. Kevin McCullough is a swingman from Kansas, and Tyler Kolek, a guard from Marquette. All in all, they end up walking out of the draft with 4 players, which is something that I think most people did not expect. I think a lot of people expected 2, at most maybe 3, because there's no way the Knicks are going to end up playing these young guys. So why would you have a bunch of young guys on the bench who are not going to get NBA development rotation minutes? Now, one of them, Kevin McCullough, was injured, didn't end up playing Summer League. So I don't really have an opinion on him, and I'll just leave it at that. We'll just have to wait and see what he looks like in the G League. But a swingman who can theoretically be a 3-and-D prospect, okay, I guess we'll just have to see how that plays out. Until we see him in an NBA game, in an NBA format, whether that's with the big club, which I doubt it, or with the G League, which is most likely, I'm going to reserve any opinion I have on Kevin McCullough. As for the other three, we just fast forward a little bit here to the Summer League. So the Summer League was fun, although somewhat uneventful for the Knicks. They didn't have the greatest of team. They had Dwayne Washington Jr. kind of jacking up shots left and right everywhere. Kind of, I don't know what he was doing. Anyway, he's no longer in the NBA. He signed with an overseas team. Hats off to him. The Knicks Summer League was a bit up and down. So the starting lineup consisted of our 3 rookies, Tyler Kolek, Pacom Davier, and Ariel Hukporti. We'll start from the guy I was least impressed with, and that was Hukporti. Hukporti, big man, overseas player, great motor. He just didn't look in shape to me. I don't know if he was coming off an injury. I don't know. He just didn't look in shape. Thought he had a nice soft touch. Thought his footwork was okay, although needs some work and improvement, but he's young and just got drafted. So sure, that's to be expected with a big man. Just really unpolished, really raw. But the thing that stuck out to me most was that he seemed not in shape. So while he showed some promise, I will again with him reserve some judgment until we see him in a larger kind of format in the NBA, where he will most likely get a ton of time with the G League team. Speaking of the G League team, there were a couple of G League players from the Knicks Westchester team that played in Summer League, one of them including the big man, Dmitro Skopinstev. Hope I pronounced that right, I believe I did. Who is the big man for the Westchester team, who looked pretty impressive, had a nice touch, looked confident, was a good pick and roll partner, was a good box out guy and grabbed some rebounds. He just overall was solid, was really solid, really impressive. I still remain skeptical on how that looks in the NBA against NBA level talent as a mostly offensive minded big, although you can tell he's really worked hard to be a better rebounder and defender. Still skeptical a little bit about him, but he showed some promise. He showed some things that tell you he should at least be given a chance in the NBA to show that he maybe could belong. Maybe. We'll see. Somebody who I'm a little sad to talk about, because if you have watched my channel before, if you've been around for the live streams, you will know that since the OG Anunoby trade, where we traded away Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, I've been on the train of it's time to bring over Rokas Jokubaitis, who is a Knicks draft and stash player from a couple of years ago, who, to me, especially in the Summer League, showed that he's an NBA level guard, or should at least deserve the opportunity to prove whether or not in the NBA he belongs. And the reason why I say it makes me sad to talk about him is because it's very clear and evident that there isn't really a spot for him on the Knicks to come and try and prove that. The Knicks are not in the opportunity of taking wild swings, like bringing over Rokas Jokubaitis, who, after the Summer League, announced that he signed with Maccabi Tel Aviv, I believe. Either way, he's going back overseas. He will not be with the Knicks roster this upcoming season, which I think was to be expected once it was announced that Knicks selected Tyler Kolek, who we will get to in a second. Rokas played really well in the Summer League, and like I said, showed that he has the potential to be an NBA-level guard. I just don't think it'll end up being with the Knicks, unfortunately. But it was really impressive in Summer League, so hats off to him. So we go from Rokas Jokubaitis, Skopinstev, Hukporti. We talked about McCullough, who did not play. We go to the Knicks' first-round pick, the youngest player on the team, one of the youngest players in the draft, who now becomes one of the youngest players in the league, Pacom Davier. I was really impressed with Pacom. He showed a fire and aggressiveness that I didn't know he had from the limited tape that I watched. I didn't know he had that level of fire and tenacity, especially defensively. The moment didn't look too big for him, although the offense and the jump shot clearly was not there, even though it does look like, nothing looks broken. Jump shot looks good and smooth and solid, and looks like with work and repetition and gaining some strength, working with the NBA distance and NBA spacing and NBA level athleticism, it's just getting used to it. But he was a really good mover off the ball, didn't let his poor shooting get to him, was competitive defensively, more competitive than I thought. It was more effective, I should say, defensively than I thought he would be. Although as an 18-year-old, there were some lapses here and there. But again, 18, he's a project, he's raw. But there's clearly a lot there to work with him. And he looks huge as an 18-year-old, so who knows? It is very clearly a big, big swing for this Knicks front office, who, is looking to develop talent within while also looking in the trade market to try and improve their team. It is a gamble to sort of stick him with the G League team and just say, hey, you're going to have to figure it out if you want NBA minutes. But it's a route that Deuce McBride took, and it very clearly paid off, as he is now the backup point guard off the bench for the Knicks, backing up Brunson after the Quickly trade. They're looking to see if they can recreate that in a bigger version, and hopefully a more productive version with Pacom Dadier, who has all the tools to be a really effective, big, sharp-shooting wing in this league. And maybe even just like a straight-up really good off-the-bench scorer in this league, which the Knicks might need as Josh Hart gets older. Hopefully, as Pacom Dadier gets older, he comes in and fills in a Josh Hart role where obviously they don't play the same, but could maybe be just as effective in helping the team win games. Time will tell. We'll see how those guys develop, but it was very fun to watch Dadier. Now to get to the star of the Knicks Summer League, a player that caused a lot of conversation about whether or not he could actually crack Tom Thibodeau's rotation. And while I think that is crazy, Tom Thibodeau is not playing a rookie point guard, high leverage minutes for what should be a championship contending team. Tyler Kolek showed that, he's not far. He's not far, though. He will have an opportunity. And to me, will most likely be the first guard off the bench over Campaign. I believe so. Who I think he will outplay, especially in practices. I think Tyler Kolek will get the first call should somebody and when somebody is out for a game or two with hopefully small minor injuries. Hopefully nothing big happens to this Knicks team injury-wise. But I believe Tyler Kolek will get the first call. I think he played himself into that. He had a very impressive summer league, showed that he is one of, if not the best passer to come out of this draft class, is a floor general, and shares something, a very similar trait as everybody else on this team. Tyler Kolek is an absolute maniac gym rat who will just work his way into being a part of an NBA rotation sooner rather than later in his NBA career. So the Knicks kind of walked out of this draft with a lot of promise, a lot of work to do, a lot of development to do. But kind of makes sense considering that they are a team that kind of has a locked rotation and would have been very difficult for any one of these players in this draft to crack. Even a lot of those lottery picks would have been very difficult for most of those guys to crack this rotation. It's just a really good team. So we move from the Knicks Summer League, from the draft, right onto the Knicks free agency. And it's a good thing we saved this for last. Because considering we already talked about the Hartenstein thing, there's not much to talk about here. The Knicks kind of just handled business this free agency. It wasn't a very good free agency class to begin with, but all they really did was expectedly re-signed OG Anunoby to a really, really expensive contract. They unexpectedly, to most people, some people saw it coming, unexpectedly re-signed Jalen Brunson to a very team-friendly extension. They brought back Precious Achiuwa, and they signed Campaign as sort of a heady veteran, good locker room guy to sort of bring good vibes to the team and be injury insurance should injuries start to hit this team again. All in all, kind of a boring offseason for the Knicks, who they just steadily took care of business. They had one big blockbuster move, and that was the Mikal Bridges trade. Incredible. It was before the NBA draft, before offseason stuff officially started. So it feels like it's its own thing. But this is where the Knicks stand. I feel like I should mention, though, that the Knicks have been reported to have been gauging the trade market for a backup big man at some point. Some of the names brought up, Walker Kessler was the biggest name brought up, big man from the Utah Jazz, who's still on a rookie deal, which seems very, very favorable for the Knicks should they be able to pull that trade off, although he will be the expensive person on the trading block should he become available. Clint Capella, big man from the Hawks. I mean, getting older, not as effective as a defender, and just slowing down a little bit, but still really good. Big man, and theoretically would be a really good backup big man to Mitchell Robinson, considering they do very, very similar things. Cheaper option in Nick Richards, who's a big man for the Charlotte Hornets, who, I don't know, could be in just acquisition mode of draft picks or whatever that would end up going out in a trade for them. None of those trades came to fruition. I believe that the Knicks are sort of just gauging the market. What is it? What would it cost? What are we looking at? Will we have to give up anything real? Give up first round picks? Who knows what this front office ends up cooking up? If they do end up making a trade, it has been my belief from when those reports first came out to, from when Isaiah Hartenstein initially left, that the Knicks wouldn't end up making a trade until the season starts anyway. They have made an in-season trade, I believe, 3 of the last 4 years. So it would not be an uncommon move for them to go. That is a rumor. That is nothing that has obviously happened yet, but I do think it was worth mentioning. And so where does that leave us? That leaves the Knicks as a championship contending team with Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, a healthy Randall, and Mitchell Robinson returning to the team with a backup of Deuce McBride, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, and now one of either Precious Achiuwa or Jericho Sims as the backup big man to Robinson. It is a really good team. Obviously, could use another backup big with the loss of Isaiah Hartenstein, but very few teams in NBA history could say that they were the perfect team. So the Knicks do have a flaw there. We'll see how this front office looks to negate that, improve on the team in some ways. We'll see. I think, if anything, this front office has bought a lot of trust from the Knicks fan base. They've answered a lot of questions, right? Leon Rose is no longer sleeping. He can retire the meme. It's over with. He made some moves. Traded away the picks. People have been asking him to trade. Make that blockbuster move. He did. Said Mikal Bridges is worth it. We'll see if he's right. But until then, that has been the Knicks 2024 summer offseason roundup. That's going to be it, guys. Appreciate you. You'll be seeing me a little bit more. Sorry to be MIA for the last 2 months, but we got to start warming up again. I mean, NFL season, preseason's kicking off, which means NBA training camps are right around the corner. For anybody who is in school is right around the corner with September creeping up on people. We are in the beginning of August. Oh boy. But that's it. Appreciate you guys. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It really, really helps, more than you guys will know. We'll pick back up in a little bit. Got some more stuff to talk about. But I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm still thinking about you. I'm still looking to make some content. Even if the timing of it is can be troublesome sometimes. But appreciate y'all. I'll see ya. I'm out. Bye.